Hello, America. Welcome to the Junto Podcast, where we promote the practical applications of critical thinking and bold creativity. I am your host, Edgar Mills. Thanks for joining us. Hello, America. Welcome back to episode 14. And today I've got a good friend of mine here, Charlie Hart, who we'll be doing a little interview with and just chit-chatting. And yeah, that's it. Charlie, introduce yourself.
Hello, America. I'm Charlie Hart. It's good to be here.
All right. So, look, he's apparently understated, but he's been traveling around a lot in America lately. He's got, I think, what I like to refer to as wanderlust. I think you like traveling, right? I mean, is it,
Yeah.
or is it for a purpose? I know there's purpose.
Explain to me, what's your definition? Wanderlust is something where, give us a definition of wanderlust.
Yeah, you love to wander and explore.
Okay.
Yeah.
As in wander, or as in wonder?
Wanda.
As
wander.
in W-A-N-D,
No.
wander.
Yeah.
Wanderlust, yeah.
I have a wonder and wanderlust.
Okay.
Both.
Yeah, I find myself, I'm, middle-aged by now. I've always moved around a lot, and I have some pretty inspiring friends that have done similar stuff and gone out and left Australia and lived in the UK and Europe and America. And yeah, so I think I just got to a sort of a stage in my life where I was able to facilitate that enough to sort of get that lust, so to speak,
Yeah.
You know what I mean, where I was able to open that up. And I do find myself now when I get home planning my next trip.
Yeah,
it's pretty much straight away.
Now, I don't know. I'm going to read. I've got a couple of quotes here I want to read because I love traveling too. Not that I'm a professional traveler by any means, but one's a quote by Mark Twain. You may have heard it. You may have not.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all of one's lifetime. Mark Twain said that. I agree with it wholeheartedly. Well, when it comes to bigotry specifically, from what I've seen, go to other countries and witness what their injustices are. You'll get a very big appreciation for America, quick.
Yeah. I mean, coming from Australia, they're culturally pretty similar places, and their safety levels are relatively the same as well. I mean, you might find different areas in the States, pockets of meaner places.
Yeah.
But you can find that anywhere, really. But they're comparatively similar, in terms of their safety levels. The thing with traveling around, so I travel by myself, is that bigotry leads to fear, and fear stops you from doing, or bigotry is in a sense, it is fear.
Arguably, yeah, from fear.
Yeah. So if you're when you're traveling around, if you're prepared to challenge those little pangs of fear, so to speak, you might be driving somewhere where you maybe never been before or whatever, and you got to, if you encounter someone, you have to meet them with an open heart, because that's the only way to go about it. And if you can do that, generally speaking, you'll bring that out of them as well, even if they are someone that might be a little bit on the edge.
Well, as a traveler, especially when you're by yourself, like sometimes you might need something that you didn't know you were going to need, and that person might. So as a traveler, you're going to be more open and soft coming at somebody. And like you said,
because you're more at you have something to benefit from people's generosity a lot more, I guess. You're out there by yourself.
But as a traveler, you have to be very diplomatic because you meet different people. And you might, I like to think I talk to everyone the same. I'm a direct communicator. I'm pretty much the same with everyone. I don't change my personality based on new people, but I might go a little softer or a little hard, depending on where I'm at, depending on culture, depending on
who they are as
whatever.
well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think traveling will, I agree with Mark Twain. I think it will kill the narrow-mindedness and that kind of stuff. And almost just out of necessity, man. Almost just out of necessity.
No, I mean, Is there a circumstance in which narrow-mindedness is useful? When you think about it, I can't really think of one.
No, I can't
unless you're already in a high conflict situation. Right?
Yeah, I mean a protectionist, right? Yeah. If you're an isolation and protectionist, yeah, narrow-minded, whatever, you close in and live in your own bubble. But is that a benefit? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
Nah, I think being open-minded solves way more problems, or just helps you navigate the world better. All right. I mean, you've been all over. I know you have.
Well, mostly the South and.
Is it? Well, I mean, the world in general. You've been to where have you been?
Where have I explored? I was lucky enough when I was younger to be moving around with a band a bit. So we went to Europe, the UK. I've also got cousins here in Texas. So we came out here. I came out here in my 20s for a wedding and a few other bits and pieces. I didn't start traveling. I've been hung up on chasing a musical career for many years, and so I've traveled a lot within Australia. My mother's from New Zealand. I've been there quite a bit. Been to Vietnam. I've been to Singapore. So I've seen a bit of Southeast Asia. Never been to India or China or Japan. I wouldn't say well, by comparison to some. But when I go somewhere, I try not to do it as your typical tourist, where you're sort of there for a day at a time and you look at something and then you move on to the next place. I prefer to go to one place, spend some time there and get to know some people, and
that's how you do it, man.
Yeah, and 2 or 3 weeks, and circle out from there, as opposed to
I find that it's better to try to live like to be in a place and just hunker down and be in that place for a while. You experience it more like a local versus a tourist. Touristy stuff is just, it's not even entertaining that much anymore. Yeah. It's like going to Florida and going to see the Disney.
If you're out in the bush or something, if you're going for a hike, it's a bit of a different story. I mean, that's something else. Again, that's sort of like immersing yourself in a wilderness, or
that's an adventure, man. Yeah. That's like if you're going to do stuff like that, that's not touristy stuff.
No.
That's going on a proper adventure. I mean, even in the Appalachian Mountains or wherever, never mind the old outback, where I assume everything wants to kill you, much like.
Yeah, Australia gets a pretty bad rep there. No, it's not as bad as it seems. We were talking about sharks before.
Yeah.
There's lots of sharks, snakes, spiders, crocodiles. But they're not in. Australia's also one of the most urbanized countries in the world. Like 95% of the population live in the big cities. So there's critters there, but they're not there.
Landmass wise, the critters own the continent.
Yeah, the critters
own the continent.
Yeah,
you're just living in the little fucking.
Yeah, we're hiding on the coast.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It'd be like I said. I used to be fascinated with it, and then Australia's kind of anti-gun policies and all kind of turned me off when I got older, but I think Australia would be wildly interesting. Now, I hate to invoke the name of Crocodile Dundee, but that turned me on to Australia for sure.
Yeah.
And Men at Work. Do you remember that band?
Yeah. I come from the land down under. Colin Hay, he spends most of his time out here touring up and down the West Coast. He does a lot of solo shows. Yeah. He's a great poet, great songwriter, very famous for that song, which they ended up getting sued for, by the way, because the saxophone solo, that is an Australian folk song, which was written, it's Kookaburra sits in the old gum tree.
Okay, folks, technical difficulties as per usual. I'm sorry, I apologize to cut you off there. So we're back with Charlie, and we're on about the music scene in Australia and how, COVID definitely hurt it for sure, like it did everything else.
Yeah, so I was just explaining there that Melbourne in particular had a very good live scene, and it still does. There's a lot of smaller live venues, a lot of places for people to cut their teeth and young bands and stuff to get in. But during COVID, a lot of places, a lot of venues were shut down, and they haven't really recovered from that. And previous to COVID in New South Wales, the state government, due to street violence, enforced pretty much a curfew on like what we described as lockout laws, which were venues had to at 12 o'clock at night. If you were inside, you could stay inside. No one could come into the venue after 12, and then by 2 o'clock, everything had to be shut down and done. So they basically, or something along those lines. It might have been 2:30, but they just all the clubs that were sort of doing that might turn into a disco or like people that come after work, sort of midnight thing, hospo crew, that sort of stuff, that would put bands on earlier on the night, no longer had the income later in the night to support the live music. So they cut that right back. And then, these venues used to be able to operate till 6 or 7 in the morning. Do you know what I mean? And and when their staff knocked off, or whoever knocked off, they'd come down and you'd end up. So it really did destroy the night culture. And it was in Sydney, and they're paying for it now. They're actually trying to bring it. They're actually trying to pay people to sort of reinvigorate it and pouring all this money into it. But and it was, look, there was a couple of incidences. It was totally unjustified. There was a couple of young blokes about 18 months apart or 12 months apart that one of them got sucker punched, fell over, had a head injury and died. A couple of kids died from this sort of street violence stuff. That's the sort of thing that happens in Australia. And one person, it's a pretty soft place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Sydney's never recovered from that, and it never will. And since then, the way that we consume, including going to work, et cetera, the way that we're consuming and doing everything, we're not doing things face to face anywhere as much as we used to, and so we're not as good at it as we used to. And so, young people have got social anxiety if they go out and socialize in a gig environment. Yeah, they want to do it through their phone and TikTok and all this sort of stuff, and the interaction is too overwhelming for them, generally speaking. So, that's one of the great things about music is that, particularly live music, is it's a great leveler. You get people in a room, and particularly young guys trying to do something original. They might be making fools of themselves up on a stage, but everyone in the room starts turning around talking to each other. It's a great thing to have for your community, and it's completely lacking.
Yeah,
in Oz. In terms of, I think the industry in general, internationally, is suffers at the same time has suffered a big hit from the way that the internet has changed things. I mean, now this is back in 2025. Really, we should be sort of starting to get over this by now, and I think we are. But it does bring a lot of advantages as well. You independent musicians, we were talking about that a bit earlier. You can get your stuff out to the world without needing it, necessarily be signed to a major label and distributed through a huge, marketing network through Sony or EMI or any of the old traditional labels that sort of held the control of the market, the gatekeepers to the market. And things also aren't necessarily they're no longer strictly broadcast on radio or MTV. Right. You've got all these other outlets, podcasters, whatever, you know what I mean? YouTube channels.
Well, how many people are listening to radio and watching MTV? I mean,
not many. I don't
think. I think the internet's the way people consume, whether it's Spotify or whatever, or YouTube or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of X-Gens they're listening to music on Spotify or whatever, Apple Music, but YouTube, like, it's a bit of a thing to get to sit around with your mates, or whatever, or share YouTube videos, things that you find. Yeah. It's interesting. You get to see, an interesting live performance or something like that. And that seems to be the way people are consuming their music a lot there.
I can see that the competition of sitting and watching a dude do a live set on YouTube versus going to the pub and watching the dude do the exact same thing. I prefer the live version of that.
Yeah.
I once had a conversation with a guy. We were standing, and we were at a place called, I want to say, the Thunderbird Inn or someplace in Colorado. It was out beyond like Woodland Park. It was way out there anyway. And there was an open mic night, and there was bands playing, several that came up. And a guy got up there, and he was a bass player for one of the bands. Fucker had a 5-string bass, and he was doing some bass solos that were blowing minds, man. And I'm sitting there, and I'm enjoying it. And my man next to him, we're drinking, and I says, "This guy's a master of his art. He is a professional." I don't know what he's doing now or where he's been. He was old. I think he had played for several prominent bands, in fact.
Right.
I enjoy watching somebody who is a master of their whatever their craft is. And this dude was a master of that fucking bass, man. And he was killing it. You don't quite get the same thing watching the video.
No.
You can hear it, but you don't get the feeling that the guy was
happening. I mean, the audience is part of the performance after all. Like, that's what,
and there's different vibes, man.
It's like whoever you're playing, it becomes part of the feeling that you're generating.
But a band can do the same show night after night, and it'd be a different vibe each night because of the audience as well. Participation or just excitement, just of the energy in the room or whatever. So yeah, man, I think the live music is. Now, when I was a bouncer back in the day, I got real sick of it real quick because I was always standing next to a fucking 8-foot speaker, whatever. But I always enjoyed live music. I don't think the internet. So I think possibly things ebb and flow, right? So instead of the internet being at odds with the little small guy, I think the live music scene will pick up sooner or later again. It has in some places already.
I think it has already. I mean, there's on this trip here, what have I been here for 5.5 weeks now? I've been all around and met a guy called Casey Meikle. He's a fiddle player and he's into old time string music. And
nice.
There's a really strong community, people everywhere, all over Tennessee, Georgia, and Virginia, North Carolina, Virginia, that area, around the Appalachians, and further. That there's thousands of these people that are out there in their communities playing music and playing a good standard of music and sticking to these conventions, and it is one of the most enriching pastimes I think anyone can participate in. If you get to do it with your family, that's even better. And a lot of these people are.
Well, especially in the Appalachian region. I mean, there's a long history of music and family music.
Bluegrass as well.
Bluegrass, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man. So, given all this, the current state of the music, the question is, how do you come to be in an INXS cover band? Which is awesome, by the way.
Well, I was recently told by a new friend of mine, a guy called Charlie Morgan, who actually played with Elton for 6 or 7 years, and another band called Orleans. And anyway, he's up in Nashville doing his thing. He's a session drummer and a touring guy and a music producer of sorts, but he mainly does drums. And he was talking to me about how Australians invented the modern concept of a tribute band. These tribute bands started coming out of Australia some time ago. We've got, in Oz, a lot of our live music venues are within RSLs, return servicemen's clubs, leagues clubs. And these places have got biggish rooms, like theatre-style rooms. And a lot of them are pretty good. A fair bit of money's been put into them. And they're like little 500 to 800 style theatres. So it's perfect for that. People know what they're coming to get. It's easier to market.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's it.
And if you end up being able to pull it off and do a reasonable job of it, it's you can sell some consistent tickets, and the infrastructure is there for you to play these sort of size rooms, 500 to 700 sort of thing. There's some bigger rooms as well, theatres as well, and certain towns in Australia, certain cities really get into it. Adelaide's one of them. It's support for live music in Adelaide is fantastic. They really come out to see it. Same in Brisbane. Not so much in Sydney and even Melbourne to the same degree. They're very enthusiastic about that. It's also driven by a very talented frontman who sort of put it together. He had a bit of notoriety because he was on the he was in the final 10 or something on the Australian Voice a few years back. And so he got a bit of exposure there, and he's particularly good at it. He does the Hutcho thing. He does the Michael Hutchence thing, but not really. He doesn't try and really mimic Michael Hutchence. We sort of do our own thing with it, but he's also very good at.
That was my next question. When he sings, is he trying to be Michael Hutchence when he's like voice wise?
Leadwire sort of does his own thing with it. No, you can see tribute acts and it's really cringy because they're genuinely trying to mimic.
Well, I don't want to name names. You named them, but I told you I saw the band a band, and that's when the guy.
I won't name names either. That'd just be mean. But
the guy was trying very much to.
Yeah, there's an American tribute, INXS tribute out here, which, well, they're having some fun. Put it that way. But to start with, there's 8 of them or something. instead of 6 or 5.
Yeah, there's plenty of dudes.
But
Yeah, I don't know. It was a good time anyway.
We'd like to come out here and tour, but
you could probably kill it, man. Probably.
Do it. It'd be great to do like a Vegas residency or something for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Start that off and then come down here.
Isn't that where like has-been rock stars go? You got to be a has-been. You can't be a up-and-coming. You got to be a has-been that go get Vegas.
I guess it's a step away from that again, right?
Age-wise, maybe. Old bastard. All right. INXS cover band. It's awesome. All right. Let's move on. Let's see what else we got here. I got a list of questions, folks, for Charlie. I hate reading off a fucking piece of paper, but let's see. What have you experienced traveling alone? Any particular instances of either overwhelming kindness or overwhelming animosity or anything that stands out and like that? Or has everything been just pretty, just rolling around doing my thing?
Look, you could say that the level of kindness and neighborliness from multiple people that I've experienced in places like Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, was overwhelming to a point once I'd experienced that consistently. Like everyone that I met was consistently neighborly and consistently curious about who I was.
Right.
And I guess the interesting thing about being an Australian in America is that you get a bit of a window when someone meets you and they're genuinely curious.
Yeah.
They hear the accent and they go, "Oh," so you get like this 2 or 3 minute window where you can talk or you can converse with someone and they're actually paying you a bit of, and in that time, if you're yourself and you're genuine, you can build it. You get a chance to build a bit of a rapport with someone. So I wouldn't necessarily I was overwhelmed by any one particular person because I think that'd maybe be a little bit weird, right?
Yeah.
But I was moved by just the consistency of neighborliness, particularly in the South.
That's good.
And the South gets a bad rep, like internationally. It still gets a bad rep.
Yeah, I know.
And it's absurd. And it really is absurd. And it's just a bunch of very naive individuals.
Well, most people default to a stereotype of some kind. So they stereotype the South for whatever, the Civil War, racism, ignorance, things like that, I guess.
In terms of like any animosity, no, not really. There's a couple of incidences where I've gone a bit too far down a no-through road or something like that. Yeah. Someone said, come out and said, "Are you lost?" or something. But that wasn't too bad either.
Well, what I hope,
no gunshots,
except out here.
Yeah.
Southern hospitality is a thing. Like that was a famous thing for a while. Like you can pretty much count on if you're in the South, some little old lady's going to say, "Hey, baby, what can whatever." But yeah, I find that these days most people, it's a negative thing, like ignorance, for instance, because like Alabama and Mississippi have very low education scores and stuff like that. And obviously that's not everyone. And obviously everyone doesn't. A lot of people have deep Southern accents for sure. But for me, I consciously tried to get rid of that.
With the accent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know I still have it, but not as bad as when I was young.
Yeah, but because I don't want to avoid the bigotry.
Right. Whatever, it's hard. Yeah, I'm glad that you've had a good experience in the South in general. I mean, generally speaking, man, people are not, if not overtly kind, at least like, "Hey, can I help you?" That kind of thing. And that's good, man. And I'm not sure. I don't know, maybe traveling up north, if you'd have got that same, it's possible.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, I have been to San Francisco and California. I definitely didn't get that there. So that was...
When were you there?
2019.
Oh, shit. That was just before the mass hysteria of COVID.
Yeah, that's right. 6 months before or something like that.
I was in San Francisco once in the 90s. It was after the earthquake. Not directly after, but like a few months after. Yeah, I didn't get a sense of overwhelming kindness from anybody. The people I was visiting, we were friends. But I thought San Francisco was a genuinely interesting city.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought Alcatraz and the pier and all that shit I thought it was cool.
It's definitely a fascinating place.
The city in general I like the hills and the geography. And
well, it's so dense as well. It's like 1 million people packed into that little peninsula there. You walk from one side to the other in 25, 30 minutes or something.
Pretty crazy. But I had a good time. All the things about San Francisco in the modern day, I have no desire to go back there at all, but I don't know. I'm just going off what I'm seeing on the internet, which is you can take it or leave it.
Well, downtown's just flooded with it's basically a tent city.
Homeless shelter, giant homeless shelter.
I was like that in 2019 when I was there. When I was leaving on the day that I left, I encountered a fellow he seemed to be suffering from some form of paranoia, some sort of mental illness. I don't know what was going on, but we got a bit of eye contact from the guy, and I was in a hurry because I was getting out of there.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to go to the airport, and he tried to stop me to do something, and I just sort of, I shrugged him off and said, mate, I can't stop. I've got to do something. And because I didn't give him the time of day, he started getting aggressive. So I just sort of quickly put a bit of space between me and him and walked into the place where I was going to and shut the door behind me, and he didn't come inside.
Yeah.
That was a threatening experience.
Yeah.
The night before I went out and walked from one end of the city to the other without thinking about it. I realized I got a cab back because it was a bit later. I went to a jazz club called the Black Cat, I think, or the Night Cat. Night Cat? Yeah. Great little club. But yeah, that was an eye opener for sure, particularly as an Australian. There's people camped up along the street all way, the whole way.
I was in San Diego probably in, I don't know when, 2010 or 2012 or something. San Diego's awesome as well. I was amazed at just homeless guys on the sidewalk at major buildings. Just sleeping bags stretched out. It was bizarre. It was very bizarre, man. California could be the greatest state in the union. They got everything, man. They got it all. Mountains, redwood forests, desert, Baja, surfing.
All the great farmland.
Skiing, wine, and even Hollywood. I used to be enamored with Hollywood. Now it's kind of gross, but I used to love the movies and all. And I don't know. Anyway, Hollywood. California.
Yeah.
Tragic. It's a tragedy. That's a modern tragedy.
Yeah.
All righty. Oh yeah, because you're a bit of a Renaissance man. So balancing music, as grown-ups, we know we got to have priorities, right? But how do you balance like your music and then your other endeavors, like contracting and things, construction or whatever, all the things you do? One, what's the priority? And then is it you love the hustle, you love the business, you love doing it, or do you get like sometimes bogged down?
I think, well, number one is to be able to be self-reliant. If you can't be self-reliant, then you can't build real self-esteem.
Right.
So I think working as a musician and trying to facilitate that ambition and that creativity, the financial limit, like the financial instability behind that got me used to a level of anxiety around that I don't think other people get used to. So that, for one, desensitized me to that. I got used to living week to week. And then you get used to banking on your talent, or not your talent, but your work. The fact that you know that you've got a bankable skill if you can go out and get the work. I mean, that's a standard thing, but you can't go out and get a 9-to-5 job. There's no such thing. You got to have 20 different negotiations with 10 different small business owners a month.
Yeah.
And then you got to go collect your money. You got to make sure other people get paid. You got to pay this. So there's a certain level of hustle, I guess, that you get used to. And then once you get sick of being broke all the time, that's a bankable skill. That management that you learn how to turn something to do something with absolutely minimal resources.
Yeah.
And So you don't necessarily spend money to make money, though. I mean, that's the saying, right? You got to spend money to make money. Yeah, true. But you can also put your sweat into it and put your smarts into it and do it for as cheap as possible. So I guess you just get really resourceful. And then through all the hospitality connections that I built through music, through gigging and all this sort of stuff, and I'd actually worked in bars, and I'd had labourers jobs and stuff over the years with builders, and whatever, you'd pick up work where you could. And I actually I hadn't really developed any trade skills because I was just as a labourer, on a shovel or whatever.
Right.
I wasn't doing it enough, or wasn't investing in it enough for someone to be bothered to teach me some more skills. So that it wasn't until I started doing that a little bit more full time. Like I'd do it for 3 or 4 months at a time, full time, instead of a couple of weeks here and there or whatever. Started to build some skills there, and then the hospo things, and then those hospitality connections started to connect up with the construction connections, and I started to move more into, I did a maintenance thing for a pub group for 5 or 6 years, where I did a lot of maintenance for them, and then I had a friend of mine that sort of helped me through it as well. He was an artist. He out of high school, he went and did fine arts, great painter, and then he was in construction as well and design. He had a design construct business, and he ended up building houses and stuff with his dad with a builder's license, et cetera, et cetera. So his experience that I built up over the years. He's a very good friend of mine as well, and we used to use it as a bit of a rehab as well. Like, you know what I mean? You'd be tired as fuck. You'd be, you hadn't been treating yourself properly, and so you'd go and get a construction job for fucking 6 months and put some money back in the bank, blah, blah. So, but in my late 30s, that, or even early 40s, those things started to combine. And because I've always been a pretty straight shooter and honest person, I was also able to be trusted in situations where a lot of people can't be trusted. There's alcohol and booze and stuff around. People start acting out, what I mean? So I was able to sort of maintain a level of trustworthiness in those more loose environments, so to speak. Right. And so that and I had that reputation. I've always had that reputation. So that I started to get given positions of a bit more, guys with restaurateurs and stuff started to get me to do some commercial fit outs and stuff with them. And then I ended up managing those things. I ended up doing a bit of that myself as well. And also I always needed somewhere to practice. So I didn't want to hire a rehearsal room. I'd get a commercial space and build a rehearsal studio and build another one next to it so that I didn't have to pay for it, that sort of thing. Yeah. So I did that like 5 or 6 times. It was just an accumulation of that over the years. But always in the background, there's always been this 20 hours, 25 hours a week, 30 hours a week, trying to make it in music, trying to do something, always gigging. I've always had, there's been maybe 1.5, 2 years out of that my entire life since I was 18 that I was out of that, you know what I mean, that I took a break from. Yeah. That's been pretty constant. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here in the States is, having come to Nashville 18 months ago with some friends, we did a bit of a road trip from Colorado. As soon as I came to Nashville, I was just like, there's something about this place. This feels like a collection of like-minded, semi-like-minded, or at least people that there's enough people here trying to do it that, about 10% of them are hardworking enough to be able to pull it off. So it's.
Well, I like one of the things you just said. You said talent, but then you said hard work. I'm of the strong belief that, as a youth, you might have some talent.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't translate, if you don't put the hard work in, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to do anything.
Totally.
I think when I was young, I had a talent for drawing and stuff, and I never developed it. That's it. I didn't put the hard work in.
It's arguable that maybe the skills that you
may still have some of the
and your eyes,
shooter. Now look,
because that's a similar, like being able to.
But just like artistic talent, shooting. Some people say, "Oh, I'm a natural," but if you don't work on it, you're not gonna. You're not gonna get good at it. You're not gonna get among the best at it.
For sure.
So everything, I think, even music or even technical skill, it's hard work versus talent. Yeah, it helps to have a little natural talent for sure. But if you don't develop that on your own, like you have, then it's for nothing. And you're just, I don't know. I got an uncle who plays music, and now, because he's in his late 60s, he plays in his church band. And I think him and his homies go out and play some like VFWs or something once in a while. Unlike in Australia, the veterans things, they don't seat 500 or 800. They seat like 40 guys.
Yeah.
They're small, like little trailers or something. Like some of the VFWs are run.
The veterans clubs with the RSLs, as we call them, return servicemen's clubs in Australia, they have small things as well. I mean, the main thing is that the facilities are good there, right? Yeah. So you put on a show, you put on a ticket to show, you've got to,
Yeah, that's pretty good. Playing the VFW here isn't that big of a thing, but playing it there sounds like, 500 people, that's a big room to me.
Well, look, I mean, there's a sort of a mellifluous force involved in there as well, because the RSLs have all got gambling licenses, right? So they can put poker machines in them. So
they're going to fill the seats. They're going to fill the seats no matter who's there.
Yeah, buses of the oldies. They bus the people from the old people looking after the different hospices, things around, whatever. They bus them all in to chuck their pensions into the poker machines and then roll them back. It's pretty wrong.
I'll say it is wrong. All right, who are your, I don't want to put a number on it, but your major music influences, like growing up, but now even, or who are you looking at? Who's your go-to stick a CD in the, well, we don't do CDs anymore either, do we?
I don't know. Like recently I've sort of revived a whole bunch of rock stuff. I don't know, being in Nashville, just I saw a couple of rock things that were pretty cool. I went and saw the Babies last week, which were pretty awesome. And because I've been driving around, I've been moving around for the last 5 weeks, all over. I spent a lot of time on the freeway.
Yeah.
I've been listening to a couple of Metallica records.
Yeah.
And stuff I haven't listened to for years.
Yeah.
Some hard rock that I haven't listened to for years, just because it's good driving music,
Yeah.
Even some Slayer and stuff. Anyway, so, I'm becoming this little, because I used to be a bit of a metalhead back in my teens. Anyway. But Charlie Crockett, someone that you introduced me to, which I've listened to that album that you were talking about, and I like that. And the old time music, I went and saw quite a bit of that while I was in Nashville. I went to a fiddlers convention over in Mount Airy in Virginia, North Carolina, a couple of weeks ago, and that was a fascinating experience. I met a whole bunch of people that are doing that as well: banjo players, fiddle players, bass players. Yeah, it just fantastic stuff. I don't know, when you make music, it's a different thing. It's almost like you're not necessarily, it's more like you're exploring something out of curiosity as opposed to you're not necessarily drawn to it. You're like, what's that? I haven't heard that sort of style thing before. So it starts to be, I don't know. I do day to day, like as well. I find myself enjoying a lot of silence as well.
Yeah.
Like I actually quite like driving, and like this don't,
I empathize.
Yeah.
Sometimes silence is golden.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I like a good, now it's not exactly silent, but sometimes I'll go on a bike ride. You can hear the tires on the road, but that's it.
But is it a push bike? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the perfect speed to take, I reckon. It's one of the to take in the world on a push bike.
Yeah, that's a great way to
cruising,
do it.
Like walking's a bit slow.
Yeah,
car's too fast. You can't take it in. But on a push bike, you see everything.
Bike is just right, man.
Yeah,
observing the world from the bicycle. When I was a bike messenger in Atlanta, the city, you don't get a lot of observation because you have to be switched on because people are trying to.
Yeah,
you're trying to get someplace fast, and people trying to run you off the road. But out in the country, man, taking a 15-mile-per-hour cruise.
Yeah. And
you get to see details, but you're still moving. Yeah, I like it. And sometimes in silence. Sometimes I'll throw my headphones on, but
on the pushy.
Yeah. Well, you got one. Man. No, there's somewhere you can hear through.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be out there with like noise canceling headphones on. I'd get run over immediately.
It's like the kids that wear them on building sites. You seen that?
Crazy.
No,
it's crazy. All right, back on travel. Is there any places that
Rome,
you've been dying to go to? No, you've been here. You're here.
Yeah, I know.
Any places
highlights
that you've never been that you like? It's on your butt. Like, I got to go before I die. I got to go to this place.
No.
Nah?
I don't get like that. More about people.
Yeah.
There's I've never been to New York. I've been to the States a few times. I'm curious about it just to go and see it.
Right.
Pretty fascinated with Scandinavia as well. Something about that place. Something, higher up the Arctic. Something up there. I'd just like to see it for its desolation or something. I don't know what it is.
I have a stepbrother that lives in Finland.
Okay.
How he got there, I have no idea. Why he's there, I don't know.
Go and visit him.
I wouldn't mind that. Like I said, we're not cold weather people, but I have a fascination also with that part of the world.
Maybe it was Empire Strikes Back or something.
Yeah.
The first scene of On Hoth.
Yeah, well, I don't know if there's any place I'm dying to go to. I would love to see, but I think that I like that it's curiosity more than anything.
Some of the Pacific, I got a mate who's a really canny guy. He's a New Zealander, and he's a boat guy. He's a harbour master. He was doing the fly in, fly out stuff in WA, dredging sea channels and stuff at the big mining ports up in northern Western Australia and northern Queensland, and got a lot of experience there. Accumulated a bit of cash, came back to Sydney and started a charter, bought a iron hull boat, converted that into a little charter for Sydney Harbour, started taking backpackers out and little party boat, and then moved that, expanded that, matured a little bit, started to mature a bit, and then he got another boat. He's since moved to Vanuatu, and he bought some land on Vanuatu, and he's putting in a little cyclone mooring, and he's building a little resort there, little compound sort of vibe, and chartering, he's got his one of his boats that he had on the harbour in Sydney. He sailed it there, he motored there or whatever, got across there. I don't know how far it's quite a way. It's like 2,000 nautical miles or something. It's quite a track.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see some of that. I'd like to see some of those Pacific Islands. I've never been there. My mom's from New Zealand, and I've got a bit of. I would like to see that.
Yeah,
that's. I've got a curiosity about that. I've got a curiosity about the Polynesians as well for some reason. I feel a bit of an affinity. There's a lot of Maori and Cook Islanders and Tongans and Samoans in Sydney.
Yeah,
and people I've always sort of got along with. There's something about them. I don't know. So I'd like to go and see where they're from.
Yeah.
And some of those interesting people that, these huge dudes that are just like, they're generally pretty gentle. I mean, some alcohol into
until until you booze them up, and then they'll beat you to death. There's some brutal, Samoan types.
Yeah, they can be.
I know
they got a bit of a bad.
Guys.
There's definitely a bit of a bad rap stereotype wise, and you do see it, but the vast majority, what I mean. So I'd like to go there and maybe go and see Vanuatu. But again, it's pretty unstable. Parts of it are pretty unstable at the moment. There's a lot of stuff going in that area. China's sort of coming in and investing and building seaports on different islands and making these sort of deals with local governments. And then, so there's, but there's still a heavy French presence in Vanuatu and New Caledonia. And there was a thing, a bit of a. Any government, I think in particular in Vanuatu, there's a rejection of the French influence still over the island there, which is sort of going on. So there's a bit of civil unrest at the moment, and there's a nasty little earthquake there. I think a cyclone not too long ago.
Really?
Yeah, been dealing with a bit of shit.
That's interesting. Yeah, South Pacific Islands.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
I've never been to anything like that. Been a lot of European, Middle Eastern places. That's it. I haven't even traveled America that much.
Yeah.
My wife and I have never seen the Grand Canyon. If you live in America, I think you should probably see the Grand Canyon.
Probably.
We've never been to New York either.
Yeah.
I've been to New York flyover, like layovers and whatnot. Yeah, I've never been to New York City.
Mm.
I'm curious about that as well, because it's
just have a walk,
so much so many people there.
Mm.
It's a small
space. What does that
space.
do to a place?
It's a small space.
Pack that many people. Yeah. What does that do, like, spiritually conscientious to a place?
It's hard to say, man.
You know what I mean? Like,
in the 70s, New York was famous for the crime. I mean, infamous for the crime. And it was horrible. And gangs were running the streets, and just shit was run down. Like, the whole city was run down. Except for, where the rich people lived. That's turned around for sure. But I don't know, man. Like, you hear about gangs, and they got their little, 3 square block radius, and they don't go outside of that, and nobody goes in. So it's weird. New York
Where do
City
you know where those
itself.
boundaries are when you're not from there? You know what I mean? 1 minute you're walking down
Yeah.
one street and then you've taken a.
Now, I haven't done the math on this, but New York City in its totality is probably less ground space than Rome, Georgia. Do you know what I'm
I wouldn't
saying?
be surprised. I mean, Rome's pretty spread out.
Yeah. So, squeeze 10 million people in there. If you squeeze 10 million people in Rome today, Rome would collapse. I mean, absolutely collapse. I don't know. Madness. New York City. I'd like to go to Australia, man. I think that'd be cool. Check it out. I mean,
Go on there.
and I don't just mean Sydney or whatever. I mean, like out, go on a proper
Road trip.
hike
Mm.
out in the bush. Try not
Northern
to get
Queensland. Got to
Queensland.
watch out for the crocodiles, but Northern Queensland.
Yeah.
Northern Queensland and also northern Western Australia. I mean, there's beautiful places all over. Southern Western Australia is very good. I think the best place, if you're going to go to a city or somewhere that's urban, is Fremantle, WA. Go to Fremantle, WA, because that's a nice place. It's an old port town, lots of Italian influence, like back after the wars, a couple of waves of Second War was a couple of waves of immigration, and they've had a really good influence on parts of Freo as well.
Yeah.
And it's a nice place. There's a nice university there. It's a good spot. Beaches are cool. People are cool. So if you Perth and southwest Western Australia is a nice. Margaret River, all that area, that whole wine region is really good. But if you want to have a look at what something's uniquely Australian, northern Western Australia, the Northern Territory, and northern Queensland, go to Arnhem Land and go to the Daintree rainforest in Queensland. Check out the Great Barrier because it's right next to the Great Barrier Reef as well.
Yeah.
You can do some diving or whatever
Nice.
there. And there's something very, very fascinating about the Kimberley and what do we call them now? First Nations people,
Right.
Aboriginals
Yeah.
in that particular region. It's almost like you can feel the presence of them when you go there. There's something about the atmosphere of that place which is deeply connected to that, and that's a really fascinating place for that.
Nice. That's awesome.
That's the Kimberley and the sort of there's a bit further south. There's the Pilbara, but the Kimberley region in Western Australia is a very, very cool place and very uniquely Australian.
Uniquely Australian. Yeah. That's what you need when you travel. You got to see what makes a place what it is.
Don't get bitten by a taipan.
Oh, don't get bitten by anything. Avoid everything. But here's what I've found in my travels, though. Like some places may look different, or there may be, urban, like Seoul, South Korea was just packed, high-rise buildings everywhere. Shit was 24/7. There was always restaurants open and things open. People always coming and going, buses running all night long, etc. But I found, even in Germany, even in Afghanistan, even in Korea, as people are generally the same, and not cookie cutter the same, but they'll treat you like you treat them.
Mm-hmm.
They're generally,
It's generally how it goes down.
if generally kind, you know what I mean, and they're generally helpful, generally. And I've had awesome experiences in every place I've ever been, meeting local people, because most of them, now Germany, sometimes they're kind of assholes,
In what way? Go on.
Well, generally speaking, I would say Germans don't care for American too much.
Yeah?
I'd say that because of the American soldier presence.
I guess, there was such a presence for so long after.
Yeah.
During the 20th century, it was a...
And it's not to say it isn't earned, man. You can get over there and do a lot of hard drinking and terrorizing the place. And so I think
badly behaved.
Badly behaved American soldiers will create that.
Yeah.
I think it's similar in Japan, Okinawa, where there's a Marine base. I think the Japanese don't care for the American soldier or Marine, but generally speaking, everywhere else.
Yeah. Well, I remember mentioned Fremantle before. It's where I used to live there, and there used to be a big naval base there. And there was access to the Indian, and you come around the south, come around the bottom of Australia, and stop in Fremantle. Fremantle used to be a big U.S. naval base. Not so much, not for a few years now, but I think they're thinking about reinvigorating that as a thing. But we used to get every 6 weeks to be a big aircraft carrier come in, and the guys would get 3 days leave, and they get off the boat flush with cash.
Just go
fucking go ballistic.
3 days drunk.
We used to busk. We'd be busking, and we knew when they were coming in. So this was like 93, 94, 95. So Nirvana had just come out and Soundgarden, and we'd always put out a few Gunners covers or something. We'd get down there, and my brother would sing. He had a really high voice and play all these grunge covers, and they used to throw 50s at us. We were like, fucking all right. We didn't mind.
That's pretty good, man. Getting $50 bills.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't happen that often, but
that's funny.
Might, depending on how drunk they were.
Yep, the American soldier and sailor. Yep, I've been a part of that. I'm not speaking from a point of innocence here.
Yeah.
I've been that guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, traveling, yeah, it's awesome. Traveling. Well, being in another place is awesome. I hate traveling aircraft. I don't like.
That bit's not
the whole
too good.
process
Cars are okay.
of the airport, coming, going, the whole thing, being on the plane. It's all miserable.
Yeah, I still get
the seats are. Now I don't do first class, obviously.
Yeah, no, I'm in cattle class, man. I'm in economy.
One time in my career, I got upgraded to a first class seat.
Wow,
it blew my mind, and it was overseas, so
yeah, it's a totally different experience.
Just a whole nother. Yeah,
I got upgraded by a mate.
Man!
At one point, I was just like, "What? You get a bed?"
Yeah, I never seen anything like it. I was so like,
I could sleep.
Yeah, it was amazing. That might change my attitude on travel if I did, but who can afford to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
But who can afford to do it? All right, I got another quote from a fellow. I had to look this guy up. His name's Miguel de Unamuno.
Unamuno. Okay.
And he's a Spanish writer, philosopher from late 1800s. Fascism is cured by reading. Racism is cured by traveling. You put any stock in anything. Now, the comparables here to Mark Twain and what he said, I think are very, very close anyway. Do you see that as being true?
Definitely. It's a much simpler way to put it. Mark Twain's a little bit more poetic.
Yeah.
But look, racism.
Yeah, I'm curious about it in Australia, for instance.
Racism is
because I know.
I think there's a lot of confusion around basic tribal instinct that we all have to look after our tribe and affiliate with whatever that is. You know what I mean? So there is, and that is conflated. That natural feeling has sort of been hijacked, by the postmodernists to weaponize the idea of racism.
Yeah. It's weaponized these days.
So it's totally normal. I mean, you come up across a girl the first time, in your life, and you wouldn't say that you're necessarily racist, but you're fucking scared. You know what I mean? Like, it's just anything that's different, anything that's outside of your environment, whatever. And I think the more that societies become integrated, the more the kids grow up in an environment in which different races are there, right? But you try and integrate a bunch of people with another bunch of people just off the bat without any sort of attempt to, and you bring a kid that's never seen, you put a black kid in a white school, predominantly white school, all the other way around. That kid's going to be naturally wary. Okay, that's not racism. That's just your basic sort of survival instincts going, I'm in an environment and I don't know, I've never seen this before.
Right.
Now that's a totally natural, normal feeling. And look, people feel shame for that immediately. And you shouldn't feel ashamed for that.
Right.
Because it's a normal feeling. What we do as human beings is, use our brains to process those feelings.
Right.
And at least you'd hope that's what's something we could strive for. But just blanketly sort of saying that anyone that has any sort of opposing feelings or natural sort of things about someone that's different is racist is completely unfair. And look, racism is something you develop. over time.
I believe it's a learned.
It's
a learned thing. Yeah.
And kids might be a bit wary of someone different, or a bigger person, or someone like that, whatever, or even someone who's got a physical handicap. They immediately, oh shit, what's that? That's weird. I don't understand that. It's it's learned.
Yeah.
And people say that Australia's look. We had an interesting referendum a couple of years ago, which we called The Voice. Okay, now this was something that was put together by predominantly the left wing government in Australia, which was framed as a voice to Parliament. Okay, but what they were actually doing was they were taking some government appointed representatives of local councils and giving them a little seat in the capital to determine, as a satellite to all these places, who was able to speak to the government. So they were creating another layer of shit for the people that
better for you by creating
so many people. Sorry,
they're creating life better for you by adding another layer of bureaucracy.
Yeah,
for you to fight through.
Yeah, and so people already had things going on with land councils, and they were trying to get representation in the government. The problem is no one was doing any work to process what was going on. So I thought, we'll just add some more people to do some more work. So that's what the whole thing was about. And the Australian people saw through it. And there was a really important person in that, Jacinta Price. I think her name is. I can't remember her I can't remember her full name, but that's her sort of Western. And she's now she's a senator in Australia, and she's a half Aboriginal, half Irish woman, and she came out and explained it. And so the Australian people clearly voted against this idea that we're going to add more bureaucracy so that, to get in the way of Aboriginal land councils being able to do what they need and the different things. And that was viewed and pushed by the government and by the left at the point in time as Australia is a racist place. Now, it's just... It's like any colonial place. It has a history, Yeah, but in modern terms, Australia is not a racist place. We take more refugees from anywhere else in the world per capita. Like Sydney, where I'm from, man, it's a melting pot, and we're not really integrated as such yet, but we're getting there. And people, it's like the big Islamic community in Sydney, which is a little bit touch and go sometimes.
It will be for sure.
But at the same time, they're in Australia, so they got to abide by our laws. And there's something that, and for the most part, they're in Australia because they want to live in Australia. You know what I mean? They're escaping something. They're getting away from the tyranny of where they come from. So they appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's generally the second generation that become the first, and the women and men that come here, they're cool because they know what they're coming away from.
Yep.
Their kids are generally cool, the oldest ones, and it's the next generation, because they all of a sudden they've created a bit of wealth for themselves, and they're in a situation they spoil their kids because of what they know, and they want to give their kids absolutely everything. Yep. But they still carry these underlying hostilities, and so these hostilities come out, and they don't temper, particularly their young men. They don't temper their young men, and Australian young men aren't used to that level of aggression, so they dominate in a lot of ways. You know what I mean?
Madness.
Yeah. That's so it's madness. I mean, it becomes but we work it out. I mean, Australia is one of those places where you can have a bit of there's a little bit of you can have a bit of sort of socially acceptable to butt up against someone sometimes. You know what I mean? It's okay to have a fist fight. It's okay to do these sort of things. It's okay. There's not, and again, we don't have firearms. Just none of the public has firearms. So what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to punch on with someone.
Well, I'm sure.
Sure it can. There's a lot of ways to hurt a person, but at the same time, that threat's not there. So
I'm sure there's 2 or 3 stabbings a year in Australia anyway.
There is predominantly, but there's a bit of knife crime, but that sort of comes from a different element. Again, that's more like youth stuff. 13, 14, 15-year-olds running around.
Yeah,
that's a different vibe.
Yeah. I think I like your take on the racism piece. I think racism is a learned behavior. I think natural weariness or protective, self longevity, right? If you're in a different environment, you're going to protect yourself until you're
be a bit more wary.
However long it takes you to get comfortable in any environment. So I don't think it makes you racist to be nervous or cautious in any environment. Yeah. So, something new happened today. You experienced the Waffle House.
Yeah. I gave the Waffle House 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
Where's the other 3 at? What happened?
Well,
What's the good bit and what's the bad bit?
7's good, man.
That's good, but
7's good
it's not a
score.
10.
Maybe 7.5.
I'm a 10 for 10.
You're a 10 for 10 on the Waffle
I'm
House.
a Waffle House fanatic.
Well, I'm biased. I've got a bit of racism towards American takeout because it's got such a bad rep for its nutritional value, you know what I mean? But the Waffle House, and so I threw the Waffle House into that basket. I stereotyped it
Yeah, look at that.
into a American fast food, high calorie, high sugar, badass give you cancer place. Whereas it's not.
No,
its breakfast was good.
It's a little greasy,
the coffee
but
was good. The staff were good.
yeah,
There's a good little vibe in there. I like the classic setup.
yeah.
You know, it's much better than a what's the place? The Texas stop sign? Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen or a Wendy's.
Well, those are just national change, man. I mean, Waffle House is now a national chain too, but
it seems to still has a person. The business feels like a small business still.
It does.
You walk in,
yeah, it does. Yeah.
The pride that they take in it.
Now, there's places in Georgia, well, in the South all over, where there'll be a Waffle House on opposing corners of an intersection. Yeah. There's so many waffles.
And they compete.
They both make money.
Yeah.
I mean, you could call it competing, but...
Yeah, true. That does help
if they can, I'm sure if they could put one on all 4 corners and make money, they would. But there's several places here in the South where there's opposing Waffle Houses on opposing corners. And that's awesome. I love it.
You go from one or the other.
You can go get the same meal.
You can have a double breakfast and no one's going to know about it. You have a second breakfast.
7 out of 10. All right. I guess that's all right, man. I guess that's all right.
What's 10?
I don't know. I would say if you had like a smoking hot waitress, but you're not going to have that. You're not getting a smoking hot waitress.
That's always good. But if you yeah, if you just, is the rating just for takeout joints or is it restaurants across the board? Because
no, it's in its own class, diner kind of.
Okay, if it's it's still about 7.5.
Can you call Waffle House? I guess you can call it fast food.
Yeah,
I mean,
for fast food, I give it a 9.
Yeah.
Okay. I give it a 9.
Now, one thing that's common about Waffle House is in the summertime, usually it's fucking sub-0 degrees out. Like you have to bring a jacket in. It wasn't today, which was bizarre. So normally they got the AC fucking cranking.
Mm-hmm.
The windows are all, the condensation on the windows.
Yeah.
And it's about 38 degrees in there. So that's the downside to the Waffle House.
Right. Be pretty good on a hot summer day though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for me. My wife hates it. She loves the Waffle House, but there's a sweater in the car. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for that. Waffle House, a little piece of America, is Americana at its finest right there.
Yeah.
And it was a small business. And they're a chain now, but like I said, I don't think they're further west than Texas. I don't know how many. I don't think there's any up north. There might be one in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it kind of emanates out from the south and then dissipates. I love the Waffle House, man. Yeah. I love the Waffle House.
It's a staple.
What else, man? What else is hot? So what do you got coming up next? When's the next time you're playing music?
We're playing in Brisbane in Queensland. We're doing a double header with the Australian Queen show. I'm playing an INXS tribute act called Don't Change. If you want to check it out, it's Don't Change INXS tribute, I think, on something like that. Don't Change INXS tribute or Ultimate INXS. Don't Change Ultimate INXS tribute.
Oh shit!
On Instagram. I don't know what
it is.
Get
it together, actually. Charlie. Get it together. Trying to get people.
Give me one sec. I should know these things. Anyway, we're playing in Queensland. We're doing a double header with the Australian Queen show.
So it's a Queen and then INXS.
Yeah, we're doing a set each. We're going to open. We're going to open with the set that INXS did at Wembley in '87, and then the Australian Queen show is going to close with the set that Queen did at Wembley in about '85, I think, but not the label.
I saw INXS in whatever the Devil Inside tour was in '86 or something like that.
It might have been it. They might have done Wembley on that tour.
That might have been that same tour.
I'd say
The
it
Devil
was.
Inside.
I'd say it was.
The name of the tour, I think.
Could have been an earlier tour. Anyway, so yeah, playing in Queensland and then going to Fremantle. Not playing in America.
When are you coming to
Anytime
America? Ever?
soon.
Never?
Yeah, it's Don't Change INXS Tribute.
There you go.
Yeah, there's the handle. Don't Change INXS Tribute on Instagram. I'm off. I'm back to Sydney tomorrow.
Yeah.
Flying out of Atlanta. Been there for 6 weeks. Got some good stuff. Recorded some good music in Nashville. Going to be releasing that. I've made some good contacts there, and I've got some good working contacts now in Nashville, where we're going to do a bit of stuff remotely between Sydney and Nashville. Hopefully I can help some of my musician friends there as well, connect with some of these guys. So that's pretty cool. We're releasing some music there. Planning coming back out here in a few months. Yeah.
Good, man.
Yeah.
All
I've
right.
been here for 6, feels like I've moved here. I've been here for 6 weeks. I don't really want to go home, but I have to.
Well, hopefully you will be moving here soon. All right, man. All right. Well, thanks for sitting down and talking. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
We got stuff to go do now.
Yeah.
All right, good people. That's Charlie Hart, and he's an interesting guy. And if you like INXS, give him a listen. And what is it?
Don't change Ultimate INXS. It's Tribute 8. But if you want to look me up on Instagram, it's charliehart.live. HEART, as in your heart. Like charliehart.live.
Yeah, charliehart.live. And yeah, go listen to some INXS anyway, because I don't want to say they were an underrated band, but in America they had a few big hits, but they had a body of work that most people haven't heard.
Massive.
Yeah, massive body of work. That's true. And let's see what's coming up for OSS. We got Dynamic 2-gun. No. On July 5th, we have a Sons of Liberty 2-gun match. That's what's coming up. So jump in that. And then we got some workshops this month, or for July, pistol and rifle. We have a wild card day. And then August is going to be 2 workshops and a wild card day as well. So if you think you can shoot guns and you want to come out and try to shoot the the Blackjack 33 challenge to earn yourself a coin, come on out and do it. No one has earned a coin yet. It's a very challenging set of drills. There's 6 stages in total, but I bought all these coins and no one has one yet. So come out and shoot the challenge with us. Other than that, please give us a look on twoteamguys.com for some scenario adventure-based teamwork and leadership development training. Anything from land navigation to search and rescue mountaineer to long-range evasion, all kind of good stuff there. And then thanks for listening to the podcast. We hit 5,000 listeners, and that's awesome. I think in the scope of life, that makes me very happy. So let's try to get to the next 5,000. Please share, like, follow, comment, all those things to make the algorithms work for us. And again, folks, reach out. Edgar Mills at ospreyshootingsolutions.com. If you want to submit a paper, I'll look over that and put it up on the juntopodcast.com. If you have a suggestion for a guest on the podcast, come along. Or if you just got suggestions for topics you'd like to hear me expand on, please hit me up. And once again, if you're a homie out there in need, if you are having hard times, PTSD or whatever else, please reach out to Edgar Mills at ospreyshootingsolutions.com, and we will help you get to the right places. All right, good people. Thanks very much. I love you guys. Spread the word. Take care.